This week has seen the resignation of Algerian President Abdelaziz Bouteflika, whose bid to seek a fifth term sparked mass protests, plus months after Uganda banned betting companies citing adverse effects on her youth. Kenya is soon set to follow suit, with around 76% of the youth in a survey, according to Geopol, involved in betting. This is Africa Focus. Here's a peek of the stories set for today.
Former Mauritanian Prime Minister Sidi Mohamed Ould Boubacar announces he will vie for the presidential election. Libya holds first municipal elections in 5 years. Finally, Rwanda 25 years on. Find out how Rwandans are embarking on the journey of forgiveness.
I'm Lenny Rashid, and our sign language interpreter is Teresia Washira. Before we get into the main stories, let's take a look at the news that made the headlines around the continent.
Pope Francis visited a migrant assistance center in Morocco on Saturday, telling migrants that a society without compassion would be heartless. Francis visited the North African country for 2 days. He also backed Moroccan King Mohammed VI's efforts to spread a form of Islam that promotes interreligious dialogue and rejects violence in God's name. In recent months, migration has again risen in the fore of national political debates in a number of North African and European countries and the United States. Morocco has become a key departure point for African migrants trying to reach Europe after crackdowns that closed or limited routes elsewhere. Italy's anti-immigrant interior minister has closed posts to rescue ships run by charity groups. Francis, who has made defense of migrants and refugees a key part of his preaching, also said he was concerned about the painful situation of human trafficking. Double Olympic 800 meters champion Caster Semenya says she is no threat to women's sport, and that recent comments from International Association of Athletics Federation IAAF President Sebastian Coe have reopened old wounds. Semenya is awaiting a court of arbitration for sport verdict on appeal against an IAAF regulation that says female athletes classed as having differences in sexual development gain an unfair advantage due to their high testosterone levels, though only in races between 400 and 1,000 meters. Under the new rules, athletes classed as having differences in sexual development must reduce their blood testosterone level to below 5 testosterone level for a continuous period of 6 months before they can compete. They must then maintain it below that level continuously. The court had been due to announce its decision on 26th of March, but it has postponed it until late April. The IAAF said Coe's comments are consistent with his, and the organization stands on differences in sexual development athletes from the beginning. Cyclone Idai's deadly heat has left some 1.85 million people in need of assistance in Mozambique in a catastrophe that United Nations Chief Antonio Guterres said rang yet another alarm bell about the dangers of climate change. Guterres described Idai, which flattened homes and caused massive flooding after slamming into Mozambique near the port of Beira on 14th of March, as uncommonly fierce and prolonged storm. The cyclone ripped through neighboring Zimbabwe and Malawi, killing at least 686 people across the 3 South African countries. There were reports that $1 billion worth of infrastructure had been destroyed. While scientists say single weather events cannot be attributed to climate change, they say global warming is causing more extreme rainfall and storms, sweltering heat waves, shrinking harvest, and worsening water shortages around the world. The United Nations World Food Programme is preparing to feed 1.7 million people in Mozambique, which has a population of around 30 million people. The UN is appealing for $282 million to fund the first 3 months of the disaster response in Mozambique, and a total of $337 million. So far, only 2% of that amount has been funded. Burundi has announced that it has extended the suspension of the Voice of America's broadcast and warned against journalists supplying either the BBC or VOA with news. The broadcast in Burundi Kirundi language, as well as in French and English, had been a popular news source across the country. The BBC had its operating license taken away, where the suspension against VOA's broadcast was extended. In press freedom rankings calculated by Reporters Without Borders, Burundi is already ranked 159th out of 180 in the world. Burundi has been in turmoil since President Pierre Nkurunziza sought in April 2015 a fiercely contested third term in office. The violence has claimed at least 1,200 lives and displaced more than 400,000 people between April 2015 and May 2017. According to estimates by the International Criminal Court, which has opened an investigation, Democratic Republic of Congo officials confirmed that parliamentary elections were held on Sunday in parts of the country that were unable to participate in December's vote due to security issues and an ongoing Ebola epidemic. The vote involved municipal elections took place in Beni and Butembo, two cities in North Kivu which lie on the country's eastern border with Uganda. Elections also took place in the western Yubi region, some 300 kilometers north of the capital Kinshasa. At stake are 15 seats in Democratic Republic of Congo's lower house of parliament, which counts 500 lawmakers. Millions of Congolese voters went to the polls on 30th of December for long-delayed presidential and parliamentary elections. Veteran opposition leader Felix Tshisekedi was elected president in the country's first peaceful transfer of power since independence from Belgium in 1960. Tshisekedi's party is working to cobble together a coalition government with the party of former President Joseph Kabila, which won a majority of seats in parliamentary elections.
Mauritanian President Mohamed Ould Abdelaziz has announced that he no longer plans to run for a third term in the 2019 presidential election. A career soldier and high-ranking officer, Abdelaziz has been in office since 2009. Former Prime Minister Sidi Mohamed Ould Boubacar announced that he will stand in Mauritania's presidential election as an independent candidate, but with support from the opposition Islamist party Tawassul.
Former Prime Minister Sidi Mohamed Boubacar has announced that he will vie in Mauritania's presidential election as an independent candidate, but with support from the opposition Islamist party Tawassul. 61-year-old Boubacar said he had decided to run as an independent candidate after deep examination of the situation in the country and discussions with political figures and forces.
I have decided to be a candidate for the presidency of the Republic and bring my experience, all my capacities and efforts to serve my people and my country.
Boubacar was a prime minister from 1992 to 1996 and again in 2005 to 2007. He will be running against former General Ould Ghazouani, a close ally of current President Mohamed Aziz. He quit as defense minister this month after confirming his candidature.
It's now the time to free ourselves from the special interest, power and tyranny. Confident in the victory of our project, I invite you to combine efforts in large collective national leap forward.
Opposition legislator and anti-slavery activist Biram Abeid has also said he will run. The presidential election in the conservative Saharan state is scheduled to take place by June 30th at a date that is yet to be set. President Aziz is stepping down at the end of his second and final term in office.
There are those who believe that change must be made in continuity. There are those who believe, as I do, that we need to make real change, where we will allow other people who haven't had the opportunity to practice power to practice it. And maybe through this change, Mauritania will benefit from new skills.
Despite weeks of talks, the Mauritanian opposition have failed to come up with a unity candidate to take on the ruling union for the Republic Party candidate. Instead, each party is fielding a candidate while coordinating positions, especially if a second-round runoff vote is required. Mauritania also declared 3 days of mourning following the death of former President Lieutenant Colonel Mahmoud Ahmed, who led the country from June 1979 to January 1980.
In 2011, Muammar Gaddafi was toppled as the president of Libya. Since 2014, the country has not held any elections when heavily contested national polls split the country into rival administrations and parliaments. Recently, though, the North African state held municipal elections in the country's first vote in 5 years. However, only about 38% of the population was able to vote. It is hoped that these elections will lead to a national vote later this year.
Libya held rare municipal elections in 9 communities, although turnout in the country's first voting for 5 years reached only about 38%. The North African state, which has been in conflict and chaos since the 2011 toppling of Muammar Gaddafi, has not held any elections since 2014, when a heavily contested national vote ended up splitting the country into rivals administrations and parliaments.
I came here consciously to choose the members of the municipality board in the city of Zouara. We wish every success to this board, and for it to achieve all the aspirations of the city's residents in all areas. In spite of the relationships and the friendships, I'm choosing the best and most efficient person who can make this city better.
Only 9 out of 69 municipal councils in southern and western Libya voted. No violence or sabotage was reported. Libya created 120 municipal councils in 2013 in a bid to end 42 years of centralization and one-man rule under Gaddafi. Some councils held elections in 2014. The municipal board of each council includes 7 members, which then elects a mayor. In Zouara, a town west of Tripoli near the Tunisian border, there was a modest turnout in the morning.
The total percentage of voters today is about 40%. This is considered the beginning, or the first round of elections today. God willing, next week there will be 7 more municipalities, and then every following Saturday. We have a total of 33 municipalities until the beginning of Ramadan. Then we'll move on to the remaining municipalities after Ramadan.
وثم سننتقل إلى بعض البلديات اللي ستتم أعمالها بعد يعني مضي شهر رمضان.
The United Nations is holding a national conference in April in a bid to end the political conflict between the internationally recognized government in Tripoli in the west of Libya and a parallel administration version in the east. The UN efforts aim to prepare the country for long-delayed national elections.
Coming up after the break.
Playing the sport of King's Nigerian style, where fashion and champagne graced the polo party.
We're about to pay some bills. Don't touch that dial. Keep it switched. Welcome back to Africa Focus. In case you just joined us, our sign language interpreter today is Teresia Washira. Now, between April and July 1994, more than 800,000 people were murdered in the Rwandese genocide. 25 years after, the journey to forgiveness is long and slow, especially for families that lost their loved ones. Let's take a look.
Their embrace is long and warm. Pascal and Jean Bosco have known each other ever since they were in school, well over half a century ago. 25 years ago, however, Pascal was among the men who killed Bosco's father, when Rwanda spiraled into the horrific violence of the 1994 genocide.
For us to be able to sit together like this, it's a very good thing. Actually something others can learn from. For us to understand each other like we do now, after the genocide, after this forgiveness, our relationship is better than before. I actually see him as my best and closest friend.
Both are elderly farmers who work the lush and green fields of cassava, sorghum and sweet potatoes outside the small town of Mutete, 40 kilometers north of the capital, Kigali. But the journey to being able to forgive one of the men who killed his father was difficult for Bosco.
It wasn't easy because after the war ended, I felt like I couldn't talk to anyone, share anything, drink together, and so on because of what had happened. But slowly, as we continued to talk to others, in prayers together, we managed to forgive each other.
In April 1994, the town of Mutete was the scene of nearly unimaginable violence as neighbours turned on each other. Bosco survived the massacre, but lost his wife and 4 of his 6 children, who were all killed by the gangs. His father fled to the forest, where he would often take their cattle to graze. Pascal was part of the gang that found and killed him.
It was shameful, I won't lie. Very shameful to face someone I wronged, that I used to share everything with. You see, Bosco was my classmate. The fact that I was among those who killed his father, that's huge. I had nothing to reproach him for, so it was hard for us to reconcile.
Pascal spent 18 years in prison between 1998 and 2016, after being sentenced by a people's court. For a long time, he did not believe he could ever be forgiven. Confessing in public helped to reset their relationship. After the genocide, Jean Bosco took a long time to rebuild his life. He eventually remarried, and has since had 5 more children.
In the island of Réunion, sea turtles were once hunted and bred commercially. Today, it's illegal to hunt sea turtles, but they remain at constant risk because of the rapid shrinking of their native habitats and natural breeding grounds. Founded in 1994, the Kelonia Sanctuary was established to take care and protect the giant creatures. Réunion Island is a French territory off the eastern coast of southern Africa and is home to 5 of the remaining 7 species of sea turtles.
Around 100 turtles hatched on a beach in Réunion Island late last month, treating conservationists and a handful of residents to a rare sight. A turtle called Emma started laying eggs about 5 weeks ago, and her babies crawled to the sea late last week.
It's the traditional type of excavation and analysis of the next 72 hours after the first hatching. It's when we analyze the number of eggs which hatched, the number of babies who died, and to recover the last survivors at the bottom, either to keep or to release.
Light pollution and massive urban development in LA Réunion's marine environment has contributed to a decline in the sea turtle population, with only 1 female turtle surviving maturity every 3 years. Locals have not witnessed an egg laying for several years.
The first breath is important because it will take in the smell of the beach, and there is all this part which is under the crust here.
A project by the Center of Marine Studies and Discovery, CEDTM, aims to increase the turtle population by restoring their natural habitat over 5 hectares along the western coast of LA Réunion.
We know that there is 1 out of 100 who survive, who will grow up and become an adult. So there won't be many who will survive among all those.
The project seeks to improve vegetation on the beaches because the smell of plants orients turtles and improves incubation conditions, and to limit light pollution, noise and foot activity that destroys the natural sand formations where turtles carve out nests.
An egg laying and a birth of a turtle on the same evening on Réunion Island makes us happy.
CEDTM hopes that their efforts, supported by the French government and the European Union, will increase the number of areas where turtles can lay eggs on the island.
It's referred to as the sport of kings and has been played in Africa's most populous nation for over 100 years. However, when a polo tournament comes to Nigeria, wealthy fashionistas come out in force to showcase the latest fashion trends. But what is the relationship between fashion and the sport? Let's find out.
When polo comes to Lagos, champagne and vibrant fashion marks the sport of kings, with flowing dresses and tailored jackets, bright enough to match the sharp orange labels of the Valve Click bottles. Madrakt Albi Makfo is a legal practitioner who wore an airy white kaftan with a multicolored floral necklace.
Polo has shifted from just the sport to a fashion statement, and in the UK it's the same. And for me, it's something fun, it's something playful, something whimsical, something comfortable, essentially. And that's why I enjoy it. That's why I chose to dress like this, a bit of color, a bit of pop.
While most Nigerians will not trade their love of soccer, the country still holds the biggest polo tournament in West Africa. The trophies are fiercely competed for and a show of glitz and glam for the country's upper class.
It's a nice environment. You know, people don't really have a lot of day events in Nigeria. There are not a lot of things you can go for during the day where, like, you know, you see people, you have a fun time sitting outdoors and really enjoying the vibe of what the environment is like.
In a country with the world's highest number of people living in extreme poverty, the sport is prohibitively expensive. Polo has been played in Nigeria for over 100 years, and nearly all the teams are owned by local billionaires.
Well, it's an expensive sport because, you know, your horses are like babies, you know, maintenance is not easy. Today they can be well, tomorrow they can have, you know, malaria, a fever, you know, colic, or even get injured on the field or on their way to the tournament.
A horse can cost about $40,000 US along with upkeep.
Infrastructure has been developed. Our field is better. The safety zones have been cleared. So the quality of polo is getting better. The hospitality is next to none. And that's why you have people that want to come and sponsor, because it's the biggest social event on the calendar in Lagos and on the calendar in West Africa.
The 2019 Lagos International Polo Tournament fielded 33 teams from Nigeria, Argentina, South Africa, Kenya and the United Kingdom. The teams competed for 5 different cups during the annual competition, which started on March the 13th.
For most people around the world, a hot cup of coffee or cocoa provides much needed nourishment, especially during chilling weather. However, for Ivorian artist Ulrich Abe, the two are ingredients for his paintings. Between 2016 and 2017, Ivory Coast, the world's biggest cocoa producer, produced a record 2.15 million tons of cocoa.
Ulrich Abe is putting the finishing touches on his latest masterpiece, a portrait of celebrated former Burkina Faso President Thomas Sankara. Like in all his paintings, Abe fuses paint with 2 unusual ingredients, coffee and cocoa powder.
My mother and father are farmers, and I grew up in an environment where my mother drank a lot of coffee. My father also drank a lot of coffee, but he was a bit more refined with it because he will mix the coffee with cocoa. My mother would make coffee, everyone had to drink it. So we grew up in an environment where we drank a lot of coffee. It brought all of us together, and those are the memories that inspire me.
The 29-year-old Ivorian artist first discovered this unique technique when an art teacher encouraged students in his class to experiment a bit more by introducing other elements in their artwork apart from paint. The son of coffee farmers and a coffee lover himself, it didn't take much to convince Abe to incorporate cocoa and coffee in his work.
Through my work, I paid tribute to farmers and to all the unseen people who work hard to give us 2 of the country's most valuable commodities at the core of our economy, which is a message that I convey in my work. At the same time, I'm paying tribute to all the great people who mark the history of Africa and of the rest of the world.
Abe's latest series of works features some of Africa's and the world's greatest leaders, such as Congo's Patrice Lumumba or American civil rights activist Martin Luther King. To give his paintings a unique signature finish, Abe not only uses coffee and cocoa, but often adds latex, clay and sand, among other materials. Abe explores different themes through his art, such as cultural identity and migration.
He puts emphasis on personalities or people that we have forgotten, people we read about a long time ago. He brings them back to life through his work by using coffee. And when you look closely, the textures and colors are different. It's original.
Abe's paintings sell for $520 and above. He plans to hold his first exhibition in September this year. Ivory Coast is the world's top cocoa grower. and is one of the largest Robusta producers. And for Abe, it was only befitting to pay homage to Africa's greatest leaders with two of Ivory Coast's top commodities.
On Africa Focus, we love hearing from you, so make sure you get interactive with us on our various social media pages. Remember, you can view this program along with a wide array of other programs on DSTV channel 268 and on Azan TV channel 138. On behalf of the entire team here on Africa Focus, thank you for keeping us company on this exciting journey. Enjoy the rest of your viewing.